What's up, horror fans, and Happy New Year, because this is my first video of 2021, but I am super excited about this video. I hope you guys are having a great year so far. This video is super important because we are in February, we are in Black History Month, and I think it's very important to talk about some of the key characters, or the key pieces, Black actors and actresses that were in horror. I want to start with William Marshall. Now, getting to that point, Black characters in horror were pretty minimal. If they were used prior to 1968, they were used either as slaves in movies, either as like these hulking, imposing looking zombies that didn't really say much. They weren't given much of a script to work with. They weren't portrayed prominently in horror movies. In 1968, Nightmare on Elm Street, or Night of the Living Dead, Night of the Living Dead came out by George A. Romero. This was the very first horror movie to star a Black character. Now, he didn't end up so well in this movie, but this was definitely broke the mold, because back then it was frowned upon it was very hard for Black actors and actresses to find work in the horror genre. The horror genre was predominantly was all Caucasian, all white, up until 1968. So that was huge. Now, the person I'm going to talk about today is William Marshall. 1972 is the year, and Black, the horror genre was starting to change a little bit. Black characters were starting to be filmed in other genres a little bit more prominently, and there was a form of film coming out called blaxploitations, where they would do a Black version of a already known movie. There's a movie called Blackenstein. And the titles are a little bit like tongue-in-cheek, but it's still huge to be able to say you're a part of something like that, especially at that point, because they weren't prominent back then. So at that point, you kind of had to take what you can get. But in 1972, William Marshall, who was an actor in various forms of film, not horror, and was also an opera singer back in his younger days, was cast as Mama Waldy, the lead in the movie Blacula. Now, you guys have seen my last history of horror that was on Dracula. Dracula's legend is huge, dating all the way back to the 1800s. So not only do you have a Black star, actually the whole movie is revolved around this character, but he is also taking on one of the most beloved, revered, reviled, just one of the biggest mainstays in horror in 1972. So William Marshall set the tone and made people like Tony Todd, like without William Marshall, there'd be no Tony Todd, there'd be no Candyman. Dare I say, there'd be no Jordan Peele. There would be the landscape for Black horror would be completely different if William Marshall didn't get that, not only get that, but he hit it out of the park. If you've never seen Blacula, he took the suave, the debonair presentation of Dracula and put his own spin on it. But he made it worked very, very well. And as you see behind me, there's two Blacula movies. There's Blacula and there's Scream, Blacula, Scream. And Scream, Blacula, Scream, the sequel, also had another huge another huge Black actress from back then, Pam Grier. Pam Grier was huge, Foxy Brown. She went on to do a lot of different things in the different genres. This was her only brief soiree into horror, but to get that level of star power and get that many eyes on to the horror genre, especially the Black characters in horror genre, was gigantic. For those of you who've never seen Blacula, it was the beginning of it, the way it's set up is really awesome. So Dracula was meeting with Mama Waldy. Mama Waldy was talking to Dracula to try to discuss ceasing the slave trade. Dracula said there's some merit in slavery, and he's like, how could you say that? So they got into a little bit of a scuffle, and Dracula even hit on his wife, and so while they started fighting him, didn't know who he was fighting, obviously, and he obviously lost. Not only did he lose, but Dracula, because he felt so offended and was so upset, cursed him with his name and bit him and turned him into the black version of himself. So he had to walk the earth the rest of his life, seeking blood and all the things that happen to come along with being Dracula. As much as we want to revere things in the horror community like Dracula, the vampires themselves are not very happy with that lifestyle, because you can't die. There's you all your loved ones you might see, if they don't turn to Dracula, they end up, or turn to a vampire, they end up dying anyway. So what William Marshall was able to do with this character was he would put the scary presentation forward, absolutely, but you definitely saw him struggle with the fact that he had to live his life out like this. And he finds a reincarnated version of his wife that he lost back when he first turned. So he spent his entire movie trying to get her back. The love that he felt he lost years ago was right back in front of him. And she could kind of feel her ancestor, to kind of feel that, when Dracula talks to her, like, she kind of feels that what he's trying to portray to her. She kind of can see the vision that he's trying to cast, and kind of getting herself back in that time frame. She ends up falling for him. Now, unfortunately, this whole time, he's still turning other people into vampires and creating this legion of vampires in his wake, because that's what he does. But he's just trying to find his love. At the end of the movie, she's killed. At that point, he didn't fight. He didn't do anything. He walked up the stairs into the sun and killed himself. Dracula and Blacula they're some of the most, what Blacula did was made Dracula much more complex. He wasn't just out to be vicious and just out to turn people into vampires and just out to drink blood. He still had some humanity to him. He wanted to find not just love, but his long lost love that he thought he lost. And he had her. And in front of him, to see her die, there was nothing else for him to do. There was nothing else for him to live for. He was brought back in Scream Blacula Scream by voodoo to seek revenge on behalf of this voodoo practitioner who was outcasted by his group. And this version of Blacula is a little bit more vicious than the original Blacula. He didn't really have he had a different mindset. He met Pam Grier, who I just talked about, and realized that she's like the best voodoo practitioner that was around. He thought, okay, maybe she can use her voodoo to change him, to take his curse from him, to make him no longer be a vampire, no longer have to be Blacula, and go back to living his life as a regular individual. Because again, he showed that this is not something that he is proud of. This is not something he wants to be. He wants to be one of the regular individuals and just live his life and go on about that and be able to die, and things like that. And this, he was very close. This is one of the things I don't understand about this movie is he was trying to get cured, and for some reason the other people besides Lisa, who's played by Pam Grier, were trying to kill him. So they ended up killing him before he was able to get free. But I don't understand why they couldn't just let him get freed and go on about his life, but whatever. Anyways, we owe a great deal of debt in the horror community to William Marshall, because anyone could have been given that role. But what he did with that role opened the door for giving more Black characters, more Black actors and actresses lead roles in horror. So William Marshall was the first one I wanted to cover because he set the stage, and this is not a disrespect to Dwayne Jones, but Dwayne Jones was a one-off, and he was the movie was not about him. The movie was about something else. This movie, Blacula, was solely about William Marshall, solely about the Blacula character. So his influence is what brought Candyman to life, in a sense, because at that point, who would have, it was kind of unheard of to build an entire movie around a black character. And when he did it and did it well, it opened all kinds of doors. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Just want to give you a little backstory of the black history of horror up to William Marshall. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I know it's been a little bit, but I am going to do my best to be back on it. I really appreciate you tuning in with me and hanging out. It's your first time. Check out the rest of my history of horror series. There's more to come, and check out any of my videos from my channel. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel if you're a horror fan, because I'm going to be doing a lot more videos. So thank you guys for your time. You guys take care.